How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the Road Options Training Program. And what we're going to talk about for our Sunday game session, our laws of game session, is why you need momentum for business success, right? And this is going to be a really good video for someone who is in their business and they haven't been able to kind of get out of the starting block and create the momentum that they need to have the success. Like, because most businesses are successful because they've been able to create enough momentum in their particular marketplace, in their particular space, to where now they're having success. And then a lot of times, if you can create enough momentum, success starts to become easy, because a lot of times people can become attracted to you because of the momentum that you've created in the market. They become attracted to that momentum. Now that momentum starts to turn into velocity. And when you start moving in a really, really fast direction, a lot of people are drawn to you because they want to be part of what you have, because they see you that you're moving in a direction with a lot of velocity, with a lot of speed. The question is, how do you create that momentum? Because that's going to be the most difficult part for most people. So if you're in that particular situation in business where you feel like, you know what, I've been operating this business for a certain amount of time, I'm not able to create any momentum that's allowing me to get the success that I need to get what I want to get out of this particular business. Most of us are not in business for the sake of doing business. We're trying to get a result that is going to be a byproduct of business success. So I can understand the frustration, because I've been there, and I'm gonna kind of tell you my story to kind of let you get a testimony from me, and you can kind of try to figure out, is there anything out of my story about how I've been able to get this type of momentum that you can maybe utilize? So I'm gonna give you some solutions. I'm not gonna just give you a woe is me story, right? So when you're looking at, like, let's say a car that is standing still. Let's say, you go into your car, you're getting ready to run your errands in the morning, and your car is standing still. You cut your engine on. The most amount of work that your car is normally going to do is going from zero, right, to getting that car to move, because the amount of torque that has to be produced when that car is at a standstill. So really, a lot of the stress that you put on your car, and a lot of people find this out, is that, let's say now your car is driving down the street and you stop at a stoplight. So your car stops. A lot of times, the most stress that you put on your engine, you put on your drivetrain, you put on your transmission, is when you press the gas now to get that car to go to a certain speed, because that's really the majority of work that car is doing. And it's pretty much like that. Unless you're operating on the highway and you're driving at really extreme speeds, the most work that you're doing on your car is in stop and go traffic, where you're stopping and then you're going, you're stopping, you're going. Why? Because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of torque to create that initial momentum, right? And that's where you put the most wear and tear on your car. And it's really because of the fundamental laws of physics, right? It's the same way in business. If you're in business and you just start your business, a lot of times getting the momentum to find that success, that initial success, is where you're going to do the majority of the work. That's where you're going to a lot of times create your most input. Then a lot of times, once you create momentum, right, it becomes easier because you're moving at a certain speed. And now what happens? People become attracted to you because of that. So let me give an example. KS, people know him as Kevin Samuels, is really, really big on this YouTube. Like, he's massive in social media, to the point that where now people try to piggyback off him. Their whole channel is just based on his stuff. And he kind of came out against that. And I understand why, because essentially these people are hijacking his intellectual property at a very high level. But that's the same thing they did to Umar when he was having his run. So this is just what people on social media do, right? And I'm not against you having, response videos, but I've known people where their whole channel was based on responding to what he's doing. Well, if you actually understood who that guy was, he had been operating on social for a very long time. He didn't just come out of nowhere, but he wasn't able to get that momentum. And then once he put out a video and kind of everybody jumped on it, it allowed him to create that momentum. And then what he did was he just put a lot more gas on that fire. So he got the momentum, and then he figured out, how can I keep the momentum? See, the same thing with brother Kwame, right? Kwame Brown. His YouTube channel has been around for a very long time, but he wasn't able to create that momentum, right? To have that channel actually blow up. And then once there was a scenario that allowed him to create that momentum, he did the same thing. He just kept pouring more gas on that particular fire, because he had the eyeballs, he had the attention. So now he just started to feed that attention. And then what did he did? He created a massive amount of momentum, right? And then the goal now in a lot of businesses is, once you create the momentum, you keep it. But this is how things work, especially in the entertainment space. You could start out in entertainment and you can create momentum, and you may be going, let's say hypothetically, 100 miles an hour. It may be difficult to stay at 100 miles an hour year after year. You may have a year where you fall back down to 60. The question is, can you stay at 60 or maybe get to 75, 80 again? Because you may never get to 100 miles an hour ever again, right? Sometimes, especially in this entertainment space, you create momentum and you may go to 100 miles an hour and then you may have a run at 100 and you may fall back down to 20. That happens. I remember 50 Cent would put a record out and he could do 15 million records. And then he got to a point to where he lost that audience and he would put a record out and nobody cared. And you saw him move into the TV game because he understood that I don't have any momentum in music anymore. I've lost it. My audience essentially has aged out. That suburban white audience that wanted to hear black people talk about violence, they aged out, which is what happens. They become older, they get married, they have kids. They don't want to hear black people talk about violence anymore. So they age out. They stop buying that kind of music. Then he was too old to sell that music to a young audience. So then what happens is he got to now transition into another lane. Now 50 Cent is big in TV, but he's nowhere near the biggest person in television. He does not have the same kind of momentum in television that he had in music. In music, his success was very broad. In TV, his success is very niche. Not to say that he's not having success, but he doesn't have the same kind of momentum in television that he had in the entertainment space. Because like I said, 50 Cent could put a record out and sell 15 million records back at that time when people were buying physical because of his momentum that he was able to create. So your momentum may not always be consistent. It can go up, it can go down. The question is, how do you keep momentum so you don't go back to a standstill? Because if you fall back to a standstill to where you're standing still, you now have to try to figure out, how can I exert so much more force to create momentum? Because like we talked about before with a car, when a car is standing still, it's going to have to do its most amount of work to generate that initial momentum. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about in my particular story. Then we're going to talk about a strategy or a solution to not having a lot of momentum. So I started my options training course. I started it really right before COVID hit, right? The actual business of it. Have been trading options, but I never taught it. So I kind of started in December, got my first student, which is the woman that has been able to retire herself as an options trader, and somebody that I was really fortunate to able to bring her in because she was such a go-getter. She created a really, really good case study for me because she had made her mind up that she was going to be successful. So it was very easy for us to create a really good partnership to allow her to be successful, right? COVID hit around February, March of that year. My business kind of turned down. So the momentum that I was able to initially create kind of slowed down. It didn't stop, but it slowed down. Things kind of picked back up a little bit. I want to say maybe around the fall. So literally from maybe May or June, things slowed down. Things didn't start really picking back up to maybe around October, November. Right before the first of the year, right before we went into 2021, I raised my price from $100 to $500 for the program. Everything was on Gumroad already, so I jumped that price up to $500, which still to me was a discount based on what I was teaching. Still was struggling with momentum. Moved everything to YouTube. The YouTube page probably maybe had 500 subs. Each video, if I was lucky, was getting maybe 100 to 200 views, right? Really small YouTube channel, not a lot of subs. One of the biggest challenges with YouTube is that YouTube feeds, this technique where it feeds people that already have a lot of subs and it kind of starves people that don't have a lot of subs and have a lot of views. So it doesn't matter what you're talking about on YouTube. You could be talking about the most ridiculous stuff in the world. If people are watching it and you got a lot of subs, YouTube recognizes that and sends your views out to more people, sends your videos out to more people. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. If it doesn't have a lot of views and it doesn't have a lot of subs, YouTube starves your video and it doesn't feed it out to hardly anybody. So when you have a small YouTube channel, it can sometimes be difficult to get that momentum. You could be on YouTube for years and just because you've never been able to figure out how to create the right kind of videos that can get the views and the subs, YouTube will push you down in the feed and nobody will ever see your videos, right? What I was fortunate is that a woman named Erickawilliams, the classic clown, she reached out to me about being on one of her shows because, the way her particular platform is set up, she has a lot of people come on, they contribute content, they talk about what they have going on, right? She allowed me to get on her platform. And then for me being on her platform, it brought me a lot more visibility. because she has a much bigger platform, because she's spent a lot of time on YouTube. She's built a lot of relationships. Her audience has a large degree of credibility to her audience. What that did was it took my YouTube channel, but also took my business and allowed me to create a lot more momentum. Right? So without her, I really believe I would have still been around maybe the 800 person sub, probably still doing maybe, if I'm lucky, 100 views on a video, even though sometimes my videos still get a few hundred views because of the topic that I particularly talk about. And the way in which I present information is not really hyped up. I don't do a lot of provocative stuff. I don't look to take the air out of the room on social media. And so because of that, I don't talk a lot about a lot of polarizing things. My content is primarily targeted at a black audience. And what's interesting about black people, as much as they say they like money and financial success, they really like to talk about other things that have nothing to do with that. Because they really don't like that particular lane as much as they say they do. They like the information about it, but actually application is something totally different. So I would have probably not had that level of success that I'm currently having now and the momentum without me being able to get and access Erica Williams' platform because of the amount of credibility that she had on her particular platform with her audience. So she helped me with that momentum. Earlier, when I was doing a lot of marketing consulting, I was able to get on a platform called buythehood. They got a YouTube platform. And I was able to get on buythehood. And what I was able to do was create momentum in my consulting business from a marketing standpoint by being on that platform for the exact same reason. They had a much bigger platform than me. They had a lot of credibility with their audience. And what them doing by them having me on their platform and them allowing me to, give value to their platform from a marketing standpoint, from a persuasion and influence standpoint, that allowed me to create momentum, because after I was on that particular platform, I had people reach out to me for consulting services just because they saw me on buythehood. So you need that kind of momentum in your business. And sometimes you will need to do what we call piggyback. And this is what I'm talking about when I said, well, we're going to kind of give you a solution to a lack of momentum in your business, right? So this is what we call the piggyback method. I learned this from a really, really old school direct response marketer. Some people say he passed away. Other people say he's still alive. I don't know, because I don't follow the guy anymore. This is the guy that taught a lot of the people that you're watching now. He taught the people that you're watching now on social media. He didn't do a lot of internet stuff. He's an old school direct response marketer. He did a lot of direct mail, right? Big time direct mail guy. He taught a lot of the people that you're watching. So let me rephrase that. He taught the people that you're watching right now on social media. I can tell by their language. I can tell by the way in which they frame offers, because I learned this stuff from him. One thing about me is I try to go to the person that started a lot of the stuff as opposed to dealing with their confederates, right? So I tell people all the time is there's a guy who wrote a book about direct response marketing in the early 1900s. Essentially, that's the Bible of direct response marketing. You get that book on Amazon for like $10, right? But you have to apply what he's doing. A lot of times, because other information is presented in a different way, people are willing to pay a higher price point, which is exactly what he teaches in that book, which is a lot of times his presentation of an offer determines how much people think the offer is valuable. But let's not get sidetracked. So he talks about something called the piggyback method, right? And what do I mean by the piggyback method? Well, I'm going to give you the example in myself. I'm a smaller YouTuber. I have a smaller platform, right? I go on Erica Williams' platform. She has a much bigger platform. She has a lot more credibility with her audience. Why? Because she's been doing this longer than me. She's been adding value to the life of her audience a lot longer than I've been adding value to the life of my audience. And her audience doesn't know me at all. They may not know me from Adam. She allows me to get on her platform and add value to her platform. And the mind of her audience, the fact that Erica put this guy on our platform must mean he's credible. What does that allow me to do? I'm able to piggyback off her credibility and the relationship he has with her audience. And now some of her audience becomes my audience. That's the piggyback method. A lot of people call it, oh, that's the cosign. Yeah, it was called the piggyback method literally 30 years ago, before all these rap dudes started calling it the cosign. It's called the piggyback method. Now, one of the things that I did, because I come out of the game and I understand business is all about relationships, I sought to do business with Erica as a result of her allowing me access to her platform. Because what a lot of times we do is we look to take from people. We don't look to try to figure out how we can give them something. So I sought to do business with Erica because my attitude was that if I'm able to get any kind of success from access to her platform, it's going to be greater than the business that I could do her, because Erica Williams does a business with a lot of people. So the amount of business I did with her would probably see it from my standpoint, from a monetary standpoint, was probably very small, but it was more of a good faith, act of good faith to show my appreciation for her allowing me to have access to her particular platform, because she didn't have to do that. So even though she may have felt like, well, this guy can give value, nobody has to ever allow you access to the platform that they've built. Just like I tell people about social media, no social media platform has to allow you to access their platform. It's their business. They can tell you, we don't want you here anymore. And it is what it is. You can't sue those people and make those people put you back on their platform. It don't work that way. So the person has built a platform on social and they have an audience and they're allowing you to piggyback off their success. Really, that's what you're doing, right? Don't mean that you owe them the rest of your life. But to me, I think you should show them some active appreciation, right? Because they don't have to do that. They could have chosen a lot of other people. They didn't have to choose you. The same thing with buythehood. I have an affiliate relationship with them. I try to give them the best affiliate deal I could give them, right? Because I appreciate them allowing me access to the particular platform. And they also have one of my products on their, I think on their platform, right? It's generated, I've been able to generate some sales for them. And I created a really, really good affiliate deal I tried to make sure that the deal was not all in my favor, but the deal was, essentially almost down the middle, right? Because I really appreciate them allowing me that kind of access to their platform, because they did not have to do that. Okay. So let me give you some other examples of the piggyback method where it's not just me. So I know you know who Tommy Lauren is, right? So Tommy Lauren was somebody that really just was big on Facebook, was big on social. She was able to generate a lot of attention and a lot of what I would call eyeballs on her social media presence, right? By saying a lot of inflammatory, provocative stuff. We know the political space is very inflammatory and provocative. That's kind of how that space is. What she was able to do then is that now she was asked to come on a traditional media platforms, which is TV. So, right? So a lot of the TV people really don't understand social media. They don't understand the younger audience, and they want that younger audience, because if you just deal with the older audience, what does it mean is that your audience will age out by death, and then you don't have a TV network anymore. So they're trying to bring some of that younger audience onto the traditional TV network. And we have data to show that young people don't even really watch TV like that anymore. So there was this really big push, especially during the Obama era, but also during the Trump era, to get young political people on these mainstream platforms, because we have data to show that young people don't even watch TV anymore. That's why you've seen all these young political people on these networks, right? And with the conservative segment being an older segment from an age standpoint, they very much understand the desire to get young people in this particular platform. They need that young audience, else they're going to just age out through death. So Tommy Lauren gets on the mainstream network, right? And she's able to, read the teleprompter with a lot of enthusiasm, right? And because that's really what she's doing. She's reading a teleprompter with a lot of enthusiasm. If you ask her to speak off the cuff, she struggles because she's a reader. And now what that does is it exposes her to a brand new audience, right? That audience now goes online to figure out who she is, and it feeds into her social media platform, right? That's pretty much as far as she's going to take it. Because Tommy Lauren reads a teleprompter, she can't do speaking engagements because she's a reader. She doesn't have like any thoughts outside of what's scrolling down the teleprompter screen, but she utilized the piggyback method. Another person utilizing the piggyback method is Miss Candace Owens. So Miss Owens goes on social media, just tries to figure out whatever provocative statement that she can figure out to get her attention up, right? We know the political space is a very polarizing space. It's A or B. This is a duopoly. You're either for it or you're against it. There is no middle ground, right? Doesn't matter what she's saying is factual. Just a matter, does it polarize people? Does it get attention? Okay. If saying that the ocean was made out of blue Shasta soda, if that got the attention she needed, she'll say that. Now, what it means is that the traditional networks ask Miss Owens onto the network. Why? Because like I said, there's a big desire in the conservative spaces to get younger people in, because their audience is already skews older. They're going to age out by death. So we got to start infusing this particular space with younger people. So we get these younger people on that kind of understand social media. We bring them on the traditional platforms, the TV networks. She says what she says. She does the same act. She polarizes, makes inflammatory statements. That's like her shtick from an entertainment standpoint. Then what that does now is it builds up her name. She gets representation where she can now do speaking engagements, right? And then now she piggybacks off the institution, the college, because the college is always going to be bigger than the performer. And you can make a lot more money speaking at these particular colleges. Why? Because they have a lot of money to pay. You can go speak at a college and make $50,000 in an afternoon. Colleges are primarily what? Younger people. Those young people now find her on social media, right? So now she has a bigger social media audience. What does she do now? She goes back to social media, another inflammatory statement, another provocative statement, another polarizing statement. She piggybacks back onto the traditional social media platforms, right? Gets even more exposure because they're traditional. They have more credibility, right? She gets another speaking engagement, gets in front of some more young people, does the same process. Piggyback method, right? I know the guy that invented it. It was like literally was invented by this guy, right? From Cleveland, out of all places. So that's the piggyback method. So it's a way in which you can create momentum in your business. Now, it works outside of social media. So if you can create a partnership with another business that may be bigger than yours, so you see this a lot of times in traditional business. We're a smaller provider, we're a smaller service provider, we're a smaller manufacturer. But we now get a partnership with a much bigger business. We start sending out PR about that particular partnership. What does that do? It gives us credibility in the market space. Now we're doing business with them, right? So you don't necessarily have to show the acts of appreciation, but you may say, hey, whoever helped bring us in this particular deal, you may send us some flowers or some candy or maybe tickets to the game, whatever. Just show some act of appreciation, because why? They're raising your credibility in the marketplace. They're allowing you to create more momentum. Now that you have this particular partnership, people now reach out to you because their attitude is, well, if this particular larger firm does business with them, right, they must be good to do business with. And so I would tell you, of all businesses, if you have a partnership with somebody and you feel like that is, you can make it look good, I would do PR behind it and get you some social media real estate with that PR or that press release up there that speaks about it. I showed you in another video, the importance of press releases and putting this stuff out. That's one of the things that people do in business, and allows them to create some type of real estate online to where you see that they have momentum in business because of this particular partnership or maybe promotion that they've gotten. These things are very important. So it doesn't just work in social, but it also works in offline, right? But you want to create the momentum in business. Now, these are some of the things that I've done from a social media standpoint as far as piggybacking. So when I got on Buy the Hood, when I was on Buy the Hood, most of y'all had no idea who I was. I was, somebody had a little audience on Facebook, but wasn't really on YouTube like that. What I did on Buy the Hood purposely is I created enough Easter eggs in that particular interview to where when somebody finds me 5 years from now, that content for the right ears can be very beneficial to them, because I put a lot of Easter eggs in that particular content. That was my intent getting on that show, is I'm gonna fill this content with so many Easter eggs that the right ears, when they understand, they'll listen to what I'm saying, and immediately it will allow them to become successful with application of what I'm talking about. Another person is going to hear that and it's going to just go right over their head. And it was designed that way, right? Because I really believe that Buy the Hood will eventually get one of them Joe Rogan type deals. And I told him that. So when it happens, it's not like I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I told him that I think they eventually will get one of those Joe Rogan type deals because of the kind of content that they're consistently putting out on a consistent basis, right? But like I said before, is they have some of the same challenges that a lot of people have in YouTube. If you're not a big YouTuber and you're not driving a lot of views and you're not driving a lot of subs, YouTube doesn't really promote their content. But I just think they're playing a long-term game that's going to be very beneficial, similar to what it was for Joe Rogan. People don't understand Joe Rogan did content for a decade before he got that Spotify deal, right? He did it for really longer than that, but he pretty much was doing online content for 10 years before he got that Spotify deal. So it was a journey to get there. It wasn't, we blew up, we got fast momentum, and then we jumped into the Spotify deal. There's a lot of people that came and went over the past 10 years that were bigger than Joe Rogan, but what he killed people with was consistency. So that's pretty much going to be this particular laws of game for this Sunday. So first, you want to get momentum in your business. A lot of times getting momentum is going to be the most difficult thing. It's easier sometimes to keep momentum than get momentum. If you do get momentum, your momentum may go up and down. It doesn't mean that if you're going 100 miles an hour that you're going to always go 100. You may go 100. You may have some years where you fall down to 80. You can also have a scenario where you get momentum, you lose it, right? And then because of the way the market switches, 3-4 years later, you get momentum again. Or, and we've seen this happen to certain people on social media, but especially on Black social media, where you have momentum and the market shifted and you don't have any momentum again. And then now you're doing anything and everything to try to figure out how to get momentum, but you didn't really understand is that, like in any entertainment space, everybody's going to have their run. And when your run is over, your run's over. You got to figure out how to go into another space and get momentum in that space instead of trying to still figure out how to be the guy in that space. We talked about with 50 Cent. When 50 Cent had that suburban white audience hanging on to his every word, he could do 50 million records, 15 million. When that suburban white audience got married and started working a 9-to-5 and didn't want to hear about black people killing each other, he couldn't get that momentum back. So what did he do? He had to go to TV. He had to accept, I'm not going to have the same kind of impact in this space, but I can be successful in this space. Right? But he doesn't have the same kind of impact on television, even though people will think he does because they watch his shows. But you can't compare him to maybe like a lot of other TV producers that are in a different category as far as their deals for their productions. Right? I know a lot of people are fans of Power, but it's levels to television. So that's what you have to understand. If you lose momentum in a particular space, you may never get that same momentum back. So then you may have to move to another space and try to figure out, how can I get momentum in this particular space? And it may be a niche space. It may not be as large as the space that you currently went in, but you may be successful in building momentum. Then if you want to get help with your momentum, ask yourself how you can utilize the piggyback method. And we kind of discussed that. And then if you do utilize the piggyback method, I encourage you to, in utilizing the piggyback method, how can you show appreciation to the particular person or platform that allowed you to piggyback? And it may not be equivalent to what they currently have going on. If you get on a platform and they doing $100 million in revenue a year, well, you may not be able to do a deal of $100 million with them. But what can you do to show them some type of appreciation, right? Because a lot of times it's not the amount of something, it's the effort and the intent behind it. And you showing that act of appreciation to that particular person or that particular business for allowing you to piggyback off of their success, right, in the marketplace. Hope you got value from it. If you know somebody can get value from it, share it out. One of the ways in which you can help this channel get bigger is you share the content if you believe it to be valuable. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and I'll talk to you later.